Well, excuse me. This is Baruch Fleischman. I'm here at the Tikkun Elevator Call. I'd like to give you an idea of where I'm at and what we're doing here in Boca Raton. This is really at the back of my yard, and it's a fenced-in yard over here in Boca. And this is what it looks like as we come around and get over here. And there's the pool that we saw the last time, and here is me, good old me. So we're coming back, and this is where we're sitting as we're about to get into the Shir. Today is the 5th day of the week of Parshas Vayakel. Today is the day of Hod. Now the Zohar's gotten into a sleepy kind of way of talking. Why? Because it's talking about what happens to our Neshamos as we leave this world every night. So there is a great mystery about what goes on over there. I mean, obviously not over there, but it's in all of us. All of us that go to sleep. What happens to us? Where do we go? So here's what we're talking about here in this Zohar. So I'm going to read a little intro from the Zohar right here on page Kuf Tzadi Beis. We'll just read the top, and then we'll get into a little bit more on the next page, which is Kuf Tzadi Gimel. So he said, Meshirin Kadamah. So he said that the night is divided into 3 different portions, and I believe he's talking about the night after midnight. He says, it says, so the first encampment, these are malachim who carry one way up, one way down, both. So they're appointed in the first 4 hours of the night. The Sherusa the Laila, the Shavcha the Marehum. And what do these malachim do? These malachim are musicians. They are singing out the praise of their master. Amaka Amre, and what is the song that they sing? He said, Hashem ha'aretz ha'moloa, to Hashem is the whole world and everything that is in it. Ani Hashem bekeretz ha'aretz, I say. Hu al yamim yisada, because he established it on the seas. Umi ya'ala b'har Hashem, and who is Zeicha, who can come up to the mountain of Hashem? Naki kamayim, he is a person who has clean hands, of bar levav, and a pure heart. Now this is the song that the Malachim sing. Using Rabbi Mimran, you must think of it in terms of a set of vibrations that are coming from a realm that we don't know, that's close to us, but we are talking about those vibrations which are the songs of Malachim. Remember that normally when we use the concept of Malachim, or the Olam Malachim, we're talking about Olam Yetzirah, which is the Olam immediately inside of Olam Asiyah, where we are. It goes on, it says, my time adol. What's the reason for this? Begin to kad leilya fris godfoy al alma, because when the nighttime spreads its wings over the world, then kol b'nei alma tamim tamid, the most of the whole world, every human being tastes the taste of death. V'nafke nishmasaychol v'zalkol de'ela, and what happens is their souls leave them. Now he said the word Neshama, and I mentioned in the shir yesterday that Neshama does not stand alone. Neshama is the penimius of the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, that is Zeicha, that we can capture within ourselves, that comes into us, because there are other lights, they're much too powerful for us. Those are called the Makifim. So he says that this light, he says the Nafke b'nishma cycle, then the Neshama, this light leaves. Being a malachim kaimin. Now, at the same time, the malachim are still singing. So in other words, as the Neshama is moving out of the body, you see that the malachim are singing these praises. And they start saying, who is Zeicha, who would have the merit to be able to come to the mountain of Hashem. Har Hashem, the Har Habayis. And when it says the Har Hashem, it's the same thing as the Har Habayis. Now that was explained yesterday, that we're talking about the Har Habayis up above and the Har Habayis down below. Malchum Kajo, as the Azaras Yisrael. So the Pasuk had said with Miya Allah, Bahar Hashem, Har Hashem, Dahu Habayis. Where was the Har Kajo? Maybe it was in there, so we'll go on anyway. Kajo Da Ezras Yisrael. So there's another level, which is the Azara for the Jews. Kagabda the Elo. So just the same situation that you have in the Olam of Atzilus, You have a manifestation that in greater physicality, in great physicality here in this world, Hachi Name Dasata. Now here starts the shir for today, so we have a little idea of is that what happens to your neshama when you go to sleep. Now yesterday, remember, and I want to remind you all again, this is a concept Naran, which means nefesh, ruach, and neshama, or neshama, ruach, and nefesh, depends on how you want to count it. From the bottom, it's nefesh. It refers to the spirituality of our bodies, physicality, the spiritual aspect of our physicality. And then you also have the same time, you have the ruach. The ruach is the breath itself. It's the wind that blows out of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu coming down through Zer Anpin into us. And then finally you have this Neshama, which really is the level of Bina, the level also of Bria, as we, in relationship to us. And all of this is flowing down one inside of the next. The Neshama is the most interior part. Now let's read the Matok. Oh, let's read the top. We'll read the top first, and then we'll look at the Matok. Begin to be called Rekia. So he said previously, there was a little drush there, that there were 390 firmaments, that's levels in the Shemayim. So he says, begin to be called Rekia Urakia. Kama manan bekama sarchin kaimin taman. So in every different level, as the soul starts to leave, it sounds to me like it's the lashon of a ladder. Well, so we'll say it says that, but as it climbs up, on every different level, there are all the different kinds of captains. So that sees there are different kama mamonim, different appointees of angels. V'kama sarchin, all these are captains of the angels, who are the origins of the song kaimin taman, and they spread and they spread. V'kad nishmasim nafkin boil the salkol la'ela. So when the neshamas come out of the human being, they want to go up to the Most High. The laws of Chayin, if they're not meritorious, they don't have the schus to be able to do this. Inu dachin lon labar. So then these malachim who are standing along the path, they push them away. They push them to the outside. Ba'azlim b'shantan ba'almar, and then they go out and they fly throughout the world. They're kind of this concept of being a little bit lost. But not lon kama chavidi tehirim, and they were taken by all different kinds of groups of tehirim, which are, I thought tehirim really meant shields, but it does here he means to say chitzonim. He means false ideas. V'odoyim lon milin kedivan, and they let them know all different kinds of lies. Zimnim milin dikashut, but they mix it up with some truth too. Because the basic idea is that a lie without truth, it really doesn't have much substance. Zimnim milin dikashut, sometimes they put in some truth in them, and they might tell you even a portent of what's coming soon, as it has been explained. So now we're talking about the neshamas of the tzaddikim. Ozlan v'shantan la'ela, they move, they start flying upwards, going upward. And as they go upwards, and doors are open for them. Now remember, you have this lining of the walls are lined with these malachim, so to speak. And remember, the malachim are of vibrational levels that are saying out these words, because let's face it, let's take the first word of the pasuk that he says, V'ka'omer mi. So the word letter mem has a special sound by itself, and E has a special sound by itself. So all of these are producing these sounds. You have to understand how we break down the words into letters, and you just see that the letters actually have a tremendous power. When you put them together, they have even a greater power. So the paschim lon pischin, the doors are opened by the malachim. Now the salgin lon, and they go up. They go haku asa de ikre har Hashem, and they go into this place which is called the mountain of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Kagam the Raz, it's like the secret. This secret, the Har Habayis, the Sata, that there is a Har Habayis. We know that in Jerusalem there's a Har Habayis. The Metam and the Olim, the Go Haku Asa the Ikre Makum Kajo, and from that Har Habayis you move upwards and inwards until you get to a place called the Makum Kodesh. The Saman is Chazin called Nishmasim, because this is the place that all the neshamas of the Jewish people, the Kamei Marehim, they all come up at this time in this place, which is called, let me get it back the name again, the all in the Go Haku Asa Dikrim Makum Kajo, and in that place all the souls of the Jews show up. So this is where they appear before the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Asa the Ikre Ezras, and that particular place where the appearance takes place is called the Azaras Yisrael, the Azara, that is the courtyard of the Jews. Now let's see a little bit more. Let's look into the Matuk and see what the Matuk has to say that. And he begins right here. Let me see how I'm lined up, if I can get everything in. Let me come back a little bit. There it is. So it says, Mefarish Lama Omrei Malachim Miya Allah Ahar Hashem. Why are the Malachim saying this? They're saying, who is Zocha, who has the schus to be able to go up to the mountain of Hashem? Begin to be called Rikia, Kama Mama, Mamanecha, Bekama Sarking, Kaiman Tama. The fish should be called Rikia because in every one of the layers of heaven, that is we're talking about the Olam of Yetzirah, which is beyond, this is Shemayim, another word for Shemayim, another word for Zer Anpin, and Kodesh Baruch Hu lots of times appears over here. The fish will called Rikia, Yesh, Kama, Mamunin. They're all different kinds of appointees of angels. Another angels in charge. The Shotim, and then there's different judges for Shotim and officers to carry out the judges Ha'omdim Shan, which are standing there. Now let's take the situation. You fall asleep. Now your soul is going up. On the Shabbos Yotzes Be'esh as we fall asleep, they're going up. But on the Salkal La'ela, they want to do, they want to go up. They love Zachim, but let's say that their deeds during the day were not qualified for this, they were not worthy. In Dachim Lon the Bar Oslan, so then they get pushed off to the side. And in the side, that's where they start to go. What does side mean? B'shatin ba'alma, they fly over the world. In other words, they're floating up above without any root, not any anchor. So if they're not meritorious at this point, to the period where they're out of the body and now they're floating around, so that the mamonim that we were talking about, which are also singers, etc., and they're saying Miya Allah B'Har Hashem, and they're saying who could get up to the mountain of Hashem, they take these neshamos and they push them out. And they go out and they start floating through the world. Because the Matuk adds, because these mamonim who are doing, as I said before, they're doing the singing and they're also doing the judgment, and they're doing the extension of the judgment and carrying out the judgments, all of these things, that's what they have multiple facets to them. Tahara. So they said, what we're looking for is Nikikapayim, clean hands. Uvar Levov, the person who's sincere. I think the Cubans, when I used to go to their house, they would say, they want to say you're professional, they say, hombre sincero, somebody who's sincere. But not lom kamachavidi tehirin. And then they get grabbed up because they're floating around, they have no anchor in Kedusha. So they start floating around, and then they get grabbed by these bundles or these groups, these gangs. I guess that's a nice word of this tumadika chitzonius. So all they're taken by different groups of encampments, of bad ideas that are actually developed out of the physicality. In other words, here's a person which is us in and out. We could do tshuva, we could come back, but at the same time we make mistakes and we make ourselves more physical, and we'll become more physical. We produce these chitzonim. They start playing around a person in his dream. Okay, ever had a dream like this? They carry Rahman at the flan. And what do? They play around with the person, become very real in the person's ideas, so you can see how it is. Person does a nevera during the daytime, he makes a lesion for them to be able to come into his soul. And once they get in there, they start playing around with the person until they seduce him into what they ultimately want, which is carry. What's the reason why? Because carry is the opposite of Kedusha, because Kedusha requires Zohar Vayakel, real men, real women. So he said, Im nifkan behistaklus benashim, and the Matuk adds is that this comes about as a result of the person is not guarding his eyes when he's looking at women. Umaligim aleichem, and they start making fun of the b'cholomos al yedei v'odoyin lon milin kedivin, and so they start playing with them and they start lying to them. Shemodiyim lechem dibri, they let them know things that are really bad, like your wife is cheating on you or your partner's stealing out of you, or they go on. There's a million of them. All different kinds of things to upset you. Start going over the day and all the things that happened in the day and that you didn't like it and you can't sleep. Well, the zimnin mean the geshut, but you have to put a little truth in there. Because sometimes there's a little bit of a prophecy in there. Sometimes they tell them something is true. That is coming up. They can see something that's coming up. Like has been explained in the yeshiva. Now, I'm afraid that I got off here. Let me see. Wow, I got to come up a little bit more. Okay, we're down here at the bottom, and the bottom says V'ina nishmin tzedikaya ozlan v'shantan la'ela. Now that's happens to what happens to neshama that's not zocha. But let's say you are zocha. So these nishmasim, the tzedikaya ozlan v'shantan la'ela, they start going upward. The neshamas tzedikim hatahorim. These are the tzedikim who really have had a good day. People who stayed to the truth. People who acted nicely with their friends. This is what when they're sleeping, they go on, they proceed onwards, and they start floating upwards. And they open up doors, one door after another, and they keep going up and up until they reach a place which is called the Har Hashem. And they're lifting them up. This, remember the Tikkun elevator kolel, where we have an elevator, and they're taking it up to the place that is called the mountain of Hashem, Shuhu Har Habayis, which is also known as the Har Habayis. But it seems like he's not talking about the physical one, not yet. The Raz of the Har Habayis, the Sata. So we're talking about the secret of this, of the mountain of Hashem, in other words, Jerusalem, or the Temple Mount, Shehu Ka'ayin Har Habayis Sheyesh Lamata. So he says, this one, he said, the Raz of the Har Habayis, the Sata. He said, what you know about the Har Habayis down below is the same thing that needs to be known. That is the process, because as you come to the Har Habayis, it's a level up, up, up. There are steps going up until you get to one place after another, until you finally wind up in the Kachi Kachim. So this is all a step inward. So he says that what you see about these steps and how things work, that's the same work, it's the way it works in the in Shemayim. So you go up. That neshama goes up into a place which is called the Makom Kadosh. The Misham Heim Niknasa, the Makom Bahu Hanikra Makom Kadsha. This, I translated slightly wrong. He says it's called the place of his Kedusha. That is the Kedusha of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, Shuhu Bechinas Ezras Yisrael, also known as the courtyard of the Jews. This is the place. The summon is Chazin called Nishbasim L'Kamei Marecha, because this is where, in this place, is the ultimate goal of all of the neshamas of the Jews to come to this Azara. Kisham Masreim called the neshamas and Nekonim. So this is where all of these neshamas appear before their maker. Kagam Dada Haku Aser, similar to this, is that place, is Chazin Yisrael Kameku Triberichu, Aser the Ikre Ezes Yisrael. So he said, translation, he says, Shehu K'ayin Osach HaMakom, it's similar to that same place. Shemis Re'eim Bo Yisrael, that the Jews come to make themselves appear before Hashem, Beregel Ifnei HaKodesh Baruch Hu, that is on the Shlosh Regalim, before HaKodesh Baruch Hu, HaNikra Ezras Yisrael, that place where the Jews gather in the temple is called Ezras Yisrael. So this is the physical Jew being able to make his way to Jerusalem at this time, and at the same time, this is the same pilgrimage going upwards that you have in the next world. Afkan Misraim called the Neshama. So also here, after sleep, all of the Neshamas of the Jews appear in the Ezras Yisrael. These Neshamas which are Tahoros, Be'ezras Yisrael, Shalom Allah. That's the shir today. Today is the 5th day of the week of Parshas Vayakel.